The cloud offers unparalleled flexibility and scalability, but without diligent management, costs can quickly spiral out of control. Despite the promise of cost efficiency, the reality can often include unexpected expenses and wasted resources. By focusing on the basics, organizations can optimize their cloud spend and avoid common pitfalls. My name is Siobhan Omani, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to this Tech Central webinar in partnership with Autumnleaf and Obsidian Systems. I'm joined today by Grant Bingham, MD of Autumnleaf, and Jason Dembaremba, Head of Development at Autumnleaf, to unpack some key strategies and practices drawn from real-world experience to help you keep your cloud spending in check. We encourage active participation from our audience, so feel free to share your thoughts and submit your questions at any time in the comments box. We'll address them both organically during the conversation and in the dedicated Q&A session towards the end of our webinar. Throughout our discussion today, we'll also be posing some polling questions to get your valuable insights and feedback. Let's kick things off by having Grant briefly introduce himself. Grant, over to you.
Hi, good morning, everyone, and thanks for the introduction. So yes, Grant Bingham, and I'll be your main host today. I'm the Managing Director of Autumnleaf, which is a part of the Obsidian Systems Group. And I've been working in cloud now since 2013 and in the IT sector for longer than I like to confess. I'm a certified cloud ops practitioner, certified FinOps practitioner, and been doing this for many years. And co-hosting with me is Jason Dembaremba. Jason, you want to introduce yourself quick?
Good morning. Hi, everybody. I'm Jason Dembaremba. I'm a solutions architect and heading the development teams in Autumnleaf and Obsidian. Been doing lots of software development for many, many years. And looking forward to this session.
Fantastic. Thanks, Grant. Thanks, Jason. I think without any further ado, let's kick off.
Yeah, super. So just by way of introduction, I'll just give a little bit of a background very briefly as to who this company is that's presenting to you. So Obsidian Systems is a group of companies that consists of Autumnleaf, Obsidian themselves, and Radix Tree. Obsidian Systems, a lot of you may know, has been the kind of open source player in the market, or not the player, but the driver of open source philosophies and principles for over 25 years. And that passion for open source is what prompted and drove the partnership together, was a shared passion for open source. And Autumnleaf, established in 2002, we specifically specialize in AWS and cloud solutions. Radix Tree is also part of the group, and they're our database experts, and we use each other often, and we are tightly aligned. We are AWS Advanced partners, we are well-architected partners, we have data and analytics competency and the DevOps competency, and have many, many years experience in AWS, having worked in there since 2013. We have a lot of skills in a lot of different areas. FinOps is something that plays a lot in different areas. Whether you're working in big data, DevOps, you're doing some development, you're doing migrations, FinOps is something that matters to all of them. So the FinOps principles and practices you'll see from the session today, we strongly feel should be something that should be democratized across the organization. Whether you're a low-level engineer, whether you're a senior accounting person, an exec, the principles matter. Jumping straight into the presentation, we're just going to give you some things that we feel are often missed. There are many organizations out there that have now taken the move to cloud and are at various stages of maturity in the cloud. Some of them just started, some of them are very mature, but in our experience, regardless of the stage you're at in terms of your cloud maturity, sometimes some basic settings, some basic FinOps or savings are missed. It's the case of can't see the wood for the trees. There's so much detail that you have to do that you think you're finessing. But AWS, perhaps just a week ago, released some game-changing feature or capability. And for us, this is about saying, are we doing the basics right? Are we doing some of the core things, some of the most basic foundation principles that will help you manage your cloud costs and cloud spend? So we've got 8 principles here. We're going to be running through them. And again, as you heard, we welcome questions, we welcome interactions, we welcome some feedback. A lot of you have got experiences that would provide valuable input here, and all of us are always learning. So let's jump into it. Something that may be received with different perspectives is what this thing is that we call FinOps. Some people may just say, oh, it's another term that's been thrown at us to argue for more spend, more money. But ultimately, We're just managing costs. And in our experience over the years, you need to take this concept, this principle, this discipline of FinOps seriously. Whether you're an organization that has an accounting department that consists of one person or 50 people, the FinOps principles are important. And let me explain why. FinOps is something that is now, again, should be democratized in the organization. It should not be owned by an individual. It's a shared responsibility. It's no longer the case where you set a traditional annual budget and you go and manage that budget and you procure resources. And then from there, you just manage the usage and the availability of those resources. Cost issues can occur from a number of different places, and it cannot just be an accountant. It cannot be an individual that looks at it. So don't let the cat in the hat come in and spin a story to you. Things can escalate, and you could be ending up trying to clean house very quickly. Don't get caught in that. So a few pieces of advice. The one is, think about this as a culture and a philosophy. Anyone who's working in the cloud must understand and take accountability for spend. Ask yourself the question, any technical engineer that's working in the environment, do they know what they're spending? Are they responsible? Do they appreciate what their spend is? There is a FinOps Foundation, which gives fantastic training. It's not overly burdensome. I highly advise anyone who's in any way working in FinOps to go and log on to finops.org and to go and learn about FinOps and to potentially become a FinOps practitioner. It is a discipline. It needs ongoing training and focus, and there are some basic guidelines that will put you in good stead to have something that is called a FinOps practice in your business. And again, that FinOps practice is not just the accountant, but it's a cross-skilled, multidisciplined team working together, providing different perspectives on how to save money, how to optimize spend, and how to get value out of cloud. So just on to some very specifics. And this session is not a philosophical, high-level view of the principles and practices. We're down to the nuts and bolts here, guys. We're just saying these are things you got to do. These are hard settings. Log into your console and go and apply this, right? Because they're in your face, but all too often we've gone into environments that are 10 years into the cloud and they haven't applied these settings. And there are good reasons for it. The one is everyone's going at breakneck speed to deliver stuff. But the other thing is the cloud is going at breakneck speed. So that the settings, the options, the configurations are changing all the time. And AWS does not necessarily optimize those settings for you to the point where a whole bunch of new features and capabilities may be enabled for free that you're not leveraging. And I'm going to go into a few of those. Enable hourly granular monitoring of resources. A lot of you don't do this, you do daily, and that hourly granular monitoring is important. Number one, because you can manage your trends on a daily basis. If you haven't enabled hourly monitoring of resources, you cannot see that maybe things weren't shut down in the evening. You've only got like a telescopic view of the day, so you don't know what's happening inside of the day. And it's important for all of us to look at wastage and say in a typical day, perhaps development should run from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. and then be shut down from there. If you don't have this hourly monitoring, you're not going to be able to see that. So this is a setting in your cost management preferences. I cannot think of any situation where you shouldn't have to apply the setting. It also gives you another important benefit, which you'll see later in this presentation, which is primarily about the importance of getting early alerting if there is a cost escalation. The next setting. AWS recently changed the amount of history that you could see in its flagship tool for monitoring Cost Explorer. In the past, you could only see a year. Now you can go into your settings and for free, you can enable 38 months of history viewing. Now, guys, this is especially useful. 38 months sounds like a long time and perhaps too long. You say, well, the past is the past. But here's the thing. It does enable you to do things like year-on-year views. And well, it's free, so why not? So the default is 14 months. Now you can set it up to 3 years. So again, it's a tick box. Go and enable it. Number 3, enable resource level monitoring. Something that is so important in an organization, especially when you start to have a situation where you have perhaps some security incidents or some internal investigations about why a setting happened or something was changed. Your billing is one of your most granular pieces of reporting alongside CloudTrail. And together they can provide massive amounts of detail for what's going on in your environment. The issue with your standard Cost Explorer reporting is that it doesn't go down to the resource level. So you'll see that you spent on Redshift, you'll spend on X, you'll spend on Y, that you had so many M5 larges. But by enable resource level monitoring, you can go and see the individual resource, the individual instance within ARN and what it costed. Now that is especially useful from a cost perspective to be able to drill down to an individual instance, but also from a security investigation perspective. So you can go and see, well, there was an escalation, something was hacked or something was an anomaly. At resource level monitoring, you can go and track that down. And it gives you a very fast view to work alongside CloudTrail to go and do some troubleshooting. So again, that is a setting I cannot think of an exception to or a reason why you should not enable this. Again, another important setting, and these are all settings, by the way, that aren't enabled by default. So please go and have a look. Discount sharing preferences. So two things here. In your preferences, there's the ability to go and set preferences for credits. Now, when I talk about credits, I'm talking about the fact that any of you, you're running an environment, if you have any POCs, you're testing any new technology, you should be able to reach out to your partner and go and say, request some funding from AWS to help you override that cost bubble, that initial cost spend. AWS will give you some credits and your partner can help you with that. And those credits can be applied onto your accounts to offset some initial spend. By enabling this setting, that credit spend can be spread across all of your AWS accounts. So they may give you a credit that is valid for 6 months, but without enabling the setting, that credits can only be applied in one account. So again, have a look at that. The same principle applies for RI and discount, so reserved instances and discount sharing. So that's cost savings plans, compute savings plans. If you go into those settings and you have a savings plan enabled, if you haven't enabled this preference to work across multiple accounts, then your savings plan is only working in one account and you're not getting the benefits. So your savings plan will have potentially poor utilization or poor coverage. So again, this is a setting, everyone should have it by default, it's not enabled. The next thing, we've all heard of this thing called CUR, cost and usage reporting. This is the thing that allows you to get an extract of your costs, to be able to export it into Excel, into an external system, to be able to view your spend and to get granular reporting. They've enabled CUR 2.0. You can Google it and you'll get the results in terms of what that's about. But they've improved the format and they've improved the ability to customize how the CUR report comes out. And lastly, what they've also enabled is a collection of CUR reports for specific requirements, getting into Redshift, getting into QuickSight. So please go and have a look at the CUR updates, move to CUR 2.0. The current CUR that you have by default is called CUR Legacy, and the new cost and usage reports are much more flexible, much easier to work with. The next setting that we're talking about is the granular permissions. And this is a setting that AWS recently enabled where, and maybe just to set a bit of background, we had a problem in the past that the billing and Cost Explorer settings were just too broad. And anyone could go and anyone could do anything. So they've now enabled granular permissions so specific people can update specific things. So please go and have a look at that. So just showing some of what these preferences look like. So if you log on to the AWS console and you just type in cost or whatever in the console, you will get to the cost and billing console. Remember that this is now consolidated. It used to be Cost Explorer console and the billing console. It's now one console. And at the bottom of those settings, you will see your cost management preferences. Okay, go into Cost Explorer, and here you will see the settings that I was talking about. 38-month, the past data, resource level granular data, and hourly granular data for cost and usage data and EC2s. And then also we recommend enabling the cost optimization hub. Again, that is not something that's enabled by default. You'll also, by the way, see there's an after discounts or before discounts option. That is entirely up to you. I generally use after discounts because I want to see what the end result will be but you may prefer to do this before discounts. You may have discounts that is an enterprise discount. You may have a savings plan discount. I prefer generally after discounts, but again, it's a personal preference. And again, getting extracts down to hourly and resource levels. So alongside just the cost explorer views, getting your extracts down, including resource IDs, you've got some split cost allocations, and you can set your cost and usage reports down to hourly. That is our recommendation. And you'll see lastly, you can actually do column selection here. You can choose what you want to extract. You can even preview a SQL query. So in the past, there was just the setting and an email address. Now you've got a lot more options. So please go and have a look at that. Okay. So that's just some settings. The discount sharing settings is exactly the same. Just go and have a look here. You've got the ability to activate for all accounts, and also make sure that you've set a default to sharing with newly created member accounts. So as new accounts get created, they get the benefits of the shared discounting and shared RIs. So Jay, I don't know if you just want to talk through this.
Yeah, I can. So as we were going through the different clients, helping them with these kind of settings, it's quite clunky. It's quite a lot of settings that you have to go to different accounts and go and check all these little things. So a few months ago, we put together a script, and then that can actually just run through your account, and then it will do some scannings and look for these checkings, and it gives you back an example of what we're looking at in front of us. It makes it a bit easy. We're simply using AWS APIs, and in some instances it might not be supported yet, but we can always now build on that as AWS produces more APIs for some of these settings. We can always just do a quick scan. But now if you're running a control tower and you've got 50 plus accounts, maybe they're actually different departments managing their own costs, it becomes very difficult to ensure that all those different departments are actually having these settings enabled. Now it will be just a matter of punching in your account that you want to scan, and then it tells you that everything is set up. It's just a quick utility that helps you get going very quickly with these settings.
No, thanks, Jane. The guys could just drop an email to FinOps@AL. I'm happy to share the code, and we keep it up to date, and we're looking to add stuff all the time. But these are all settings. These are all features that you all have. Yeah, these are out of the box things that AWS has. Unfortunately, what happens is there's so much new stuff happening in AWS. It's easy to miss new features and new capabilities. I have to log in every day to check these features, and I miss them at times too. So we have these little tools that just keep you up to date and make sure you can quickly scan and know what you've set or what you've not set, because there's so much to do. So please reach out to the guys, and they'll be happy to share this with you. Thanks, Jay. Just jumping on to tip from the trenches, number 3, early bird catches the worm. And this is the thing that in any environment when I go into, we typically do 2 things. Number 1 is we go and put in some routines to just check that we're managing costs. And number 2, we just check the security settings, not necessarily in that order. But there is not an environment we haven't been to. And for those of you on the call, I'm sure you've all had some escalation, some scare. And it usually happens at the worst time. It's Sunday, 2 o'clock in the morning. Spend is normally $100. Suddenly it's $600, or heaven forbid, even worse. We've had very high level cost escalations. A simple example, and it doesn't have to be a security incident. A common one that we experience is a Lambda loop, right? The thing just runs into a loop and can quickly go and spend 500,000 Rand in a day. What you want is an earlier warning system. You don't want to get to the month end and that cost has been happily just whirring away, running a bill. So here's the recommendation. AWS have some useful tools for this. They have 2 things. They've got something called the budget tooling, or the budgets alerts, and they've got anomaly detection. And we use them together. So the recommendation is this: set up both, okay? But also in each of these, they have the ability to set thresholds. So giving you an example, in the case of budgets, you want to look at an alert so that you have a daily alert where you expect to spend $100, but what happens if the spend becomes $150? You want to get an alert, okay? What's important here is, in our experience, sending out daily alerts where every day you get an email on spend is a waste, because we all get too much email. So These alerts must be at the right cadence, that when you get an alert in your email that says, hey, the spend is over a certain amount, we expect you to spend $100, but you've spent $120, that you get, when you see that email, that you take action, right? So the idea is to set a threshold, an amount that warrants attention, so we don't have a cry wolf situation. So what is meaningful for you, right? Maybe in a small organization, $50 matters. Maybe in a bigger organization, an overspend of $500 a day matters. Again, a few rules here. Number one is you want to get the warnings as early as possible. So don't wait for 3 days, 4 days, 5 days. Set up a daily exception alert, okay? A couple of things to keep in mind here. With AWS, when they set up the budget alert, you set a baseline. You go and say, for a daily alert, I'm expecting a spend of $100 a day. In anomaly detection, it's slightly different. In anomaly detection uses some basic calculations and some basic AI to go and build a baseline to determine what is a normal spend. So what we recommend here is, again, use both. With anomaly detection, go and set a rule, 150% of spend of normal baseline, set an alert, right? And for budgets, go and figure out what your spend is. The AWS tool is quite nice. When you go and set up the budget, it actually shows you a nice graph based on the spend. And then the next thing is, when you set up this alerting, set up 2 levels of alert. Set up a baseline alert, which is an alert that says you've spent 25% above your normal spend. And then set up an escalation alert. And this is very important when costs have gone way beyond the normal amount. Okay. And then make that a push alert and send that perhaps to an escalation group where perhaps someone more senior gets that alert where they don't get the others. So it can get the attention it deserves. So the ability to build this again is all in AWS. The budget alerting is something, it's not difficult to configure. You basically just go and set up your daily all accounts alert, configure it daily, set a fixed amount, and then go and specify your amount here. And from there, there's basically 2 stages for both anomaly and budgets. You go and set up a budget, and then once you've set up the budget, you set thresholds. So over here, we may say your budgeted amount is $100 a day. Once you configure that, you then go and set up your thresholds. And a threshold will be a percentage of spend or a fixed amount of spend above that. And again, we recommend you create 2 thresholds. Your earlier warning, which is just, hey, look, we're starting to see an amount escalating. And then the second one, which is an escalation, says, hey, things have really gone expensive here. There are some settings here that we advise. I recommend you remove tax and all other anomalies, because at the beginning of the month, you get this new tax bill and you don't need to escalate about that. So we recommend just removing those elements. Anomaly detection is a little bit quirky to set up. If you have challenges with that, please reach out to us and we can help you with it. I don't want to go into the quirks about it, except to say that between actually the budget and anomaly detection, we actually find the anomaly detection better for a couple of reasons. Number one, the anomaly detection allows you to build up a more sophisticated rule set. So you can say if the alert is a certain amount above spend, like $100, but you can also say a percentage above the spend. So you don't get a situation where you get alerted because you get a 25% cost increase, but the cost was $1, right? So now you get alerted because you've got a 25% overspend. So you can set up a combination of rules to make sure you only get alerted when you need to. One of the other key benefits of anomaly detection is that it gives you inline emails. When the alert happens, it sends out an email, but it actually gives you 2 AI-based rules to say, I think your cost overrun is because of these things. In budget alerts, it just says you've spent over the amount. Log on to the console and figure out what you do. Now, I don't like that because you're typically getting the alert at like 2 o'clock in the morning and you're not ready to go and log on to the console. Okay, so, but again, I would recommend you set up both of these, budget alerts and anomaly detection, and in both 2 thresholds, and an early alert and then an escalation alert. So we have our own tool which helps with this. There's a problem that you've got with AWS's alerting, and that is that in our experience, the alert can be up to 36 hours behind when the event happened. So you kind of start to say, well, hang on, this is a daily alerter, but what you're telling me is there's an escalation that happens at 2 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday. And what you're saying is I might only be notified about it on Wednesday midday. Okay. That is a problem. So they don't guarantee how long it's going to take before they send out that alert. They haven't proved it. There were recent announcements in cost anomaly detection, but again, the SLA is 36 hours. So we built up a system. Jay, I don't know if maybe you want to talk through it or maybe, yeah.
Yeah, no, just to add to what you're saying. So in our experience in our teams, we've got quite big teams in keeping with the principle of ownership and accountability, where everyone takes ownership of their cloud usage. The out-of-the-box budget rating wasn't really doing it because it just tells you you've gone over by this much. But what we try to do with this tool is that, number one, it actually targets the team leads of very specific projects, and they know the workloads that they're actually working on, the resources that they're running. So the alert becomes very more informative, and it actually tells you, you're the one who's running an EKS cluster, or you're running these things, and they can immediately actually respond and do something about it. Or just say, resolve it and say, look, yeah, I'm definitely doing some work there. Over and above sending it to the main FinOps team that is actually looking at just high-level costs.
Sorry, go ahead.
Now it becomes inclusive of everybody in the team. When you get that alert, then everybody it's very targeted. The people that it affects, we actually have different teams in their own different OUs in a control tower. So each one then knows exactly that this is my stuff, and I need to actually go and do something there. That's number one. Then the next thing was that we try to build a tool that some of our clients, they use different channels. Some they like using Teams, some like using WhatsApp. And our tool is actually got a notification module that can allow to target, you configure which channel you want to use for your alerting. And those are the two key things we wanted to achieve with this tool, and be able to set those settings as well. So yeah, it's a module that is a part of our bigger tool set that we've got in Obsidian. And we found it a bit more inclusive and less frustrating than our AWS budget tool.
So one of the things I know, Jay, that we do here is we use the SNS alerts because in budgets and others, there's the ability just to use emails, right? So we recommend you use groups and SNS alerts so that you get proper managed communications. And so over here, we're using SNS topics, right?
Yeah.
Connected into these services.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so that's a daily alerter. And then this is the email that it sends out, which is quite useful. So in the event of an issue occurring, it'll send out alerts saying you've got these spends, and it'll give you a breakdown of the costs by largest to smallest. And that's the inline alerting that, again, anomaly detection does, that budget alerting doesn't. But this will give you within an hour alerting. So we recommend it. Again, reach out to us and we can provide you with these details. But in our experience, this is the, when you get that WhatsApp alert, when you get that Slack alert, rather get it where you're early on in the cost spend and it hasn't escalated because things can go from, our spend went up $500 to it went up to $20,000, right? You do not want to be at the $20,000 discussion and you're doing a post-mortem and you're begging AWS to help offset some costs, right? So this allows a team, now with this early alert, you can send it up to a broader group, and people can now make decisions based on spend. They can see exactly where the anomaly is. When we do alerting, it is useful to do an alert on all accounts. It is also useful potentially to do alerts on either a group of accounts or individual accounts. Okay, so we recommend a combination of all of those.
Yeah, but it also depends on your FinOps framework strategy, depending on the different structure of your teams. You want to plan those things up front and actually really understand how the dynamics of your teams. Then you set up these groups and alerts accordingly, and make sure there are people responsible for each of those teams that are able to monitor these things and who should be notified and respond as soon as they get these alerts.
Ja, I know you've got a demo for this. Let's try and keep the demo to the end, and then we can I can stop sharing, and you can take over the screen. but I think it'll be good to show a little demo of this. One of the things that matters to me is you in your business, typically the people that you're interacting with, you've got to make sure that they're okay, that they're going to get a WhatsApp or something alert. It's got to be something that is an approved channel in the business. But in our experience, whatever the alert is, it should be to a group chat. It shouldn't just be spun out or blasted to a group of 20 individuals, right? It should be sent to some kind of a group chat where you can interact with and make sure that it is resolved in a forum. Where we're going to with this, that we're working hard on is we're working hard to make sure that this alert has the ability to have some interaction. So we're looking at the concept of chat ops, so that when you get the alert, you can do queries in the chat to go and say, tell me this, tell me that. That is the future of this, right? Is using AI together with chatbot type capabilities so that you don't need to log onto consoles. You don't need to go and do detailed escalations, that the tool is there to give you simple two-way communication. So as Jay mentioned, we're doing escalation. I don't know, Jay, you want to add anything here?
Yeah, I think what to add here was we already alluded to it is the groups. As you know, I think the out of the box WhatsApp, the Meta API, it only allows for individuals, sending it to individuals, and that's not ideal, right? Because everybody is in their own little space getting information. You want to have it in a group where everybody is getting the same message and the responses are all going to the same people at the same time. So that's one of the features we had to ensure, or principles were to ensure that it's sending to a group.
Yeah,
that's what
and then in that group, as you can see here, Jay, is just some inline information. Yeah, so you can make some decisions. Now, what's nice is as a team, you can make comments, right? So it's not a case of, okay, we've had this escalation. I got this notification. Who do I speak to? Who do I find? And then you discover, oh, Fred already resolved it, right? Or Jenny's looked at this. You can ignore it. And you're panicking, right? Keep these communications tight because they usually happen at a poor time, at the worst time possible. Yeah.
And just another thing is it's very templatized. The message you see, that's just actually a team actually could have just have their own template. What are they more interested in? It shows the top resources. So you can have a lot of resources and you can actually configure to say, I only want to see anything that is costing me $1 and above, so forth, so that you're really pinpointing to the key issues and not getting a lot of noise. You could easily get about 20 resources there, each one costing maybe 0.05 cents, and that's just noise. So you can actually configure, just show me the top 10, the top 5 that are costing me $2 and above or $20 and above. And that's what I'm interested in to quickly kill and destroy. Yeah.
Thanks, Jay. And I challenge any of you, right? If you think any of you on this call say, yeah, we got this, we don't have to worry about escalations. Personally, I would say I would feel uncomfortable being you. I would say there is no exception here, right? Get this alerting in place. Make sure you have it in place. It is a very good insurance policy. We're going on to advice tip number 5, which is allocate like everyone is watching. Cost allocation is something we all face. Typically, you're not running one workload in the cloud. And even if you're running one workload, you still need to figure out how to allocate certain costs against certain budgets. And cost allocation, as much as AWS billing is quite detailed, shared costs can be difficult to manage. And something I want to temper is the usage of tagging. Because in our experience, when you're doing cost allocation is generally for not so much for budgeting purposes, but also accounting purposes. And accounting regulatory requirements are different to budgeting. They need 100% validation. They need 100% reconciliation. The debits and credits must all tally up. They must all negate each other. And so in tagging is in our view like a 90% certainty thing. There are certain things that cannot be tagged in a certain way and things that can be missed. So tagging is useful for exploring. We wouldn't advise it as a way to do cost allocation. It can assist and advise, but the best way we've experienced is actually to use cost categories, because you can allocate things, for example, by AWS accounts. You can do percentage allocations in cost categories. The billing conductor is useful as well in that it allows you to customize your billing report. So that is a new feature AWS has. Again, we typically don't use that. So just a few pieces of advice here. If you haven't, had to go and have a look at cost categories. They're a great way to do cost allocation. Again, maybe a simple example is you have a shared set of data stored in a directory, or you have a shared network cost, right? AWS cost categories gives you the ability to go and build a report, build a view of data that can be automated, that will tell you, all right, we're allocating 20% of this cost to this department, 20% to that, and it is done every month by default. What we find in a lot of organizations, even large organizations, is that the cost allocation and the accounting reconciliation, the general ledger reconciliation, ends up being done through spreadsheets. It's some spreadsheet jockey, Excel jockey is sitting and simulating it and reconciling, and we don't think that is good. You should try and automate things. Tagging, don't get us wrong, is still incredibly useful, but please reach out to us if you want some advice or details. We have tagging standards, we have tagging alerting tools to help with the tagging exceptions, but they are not the be all and end all for chargebacks. So, but we know that chargebacks are very important. Be aware that they need to be in place. And again, we think cost categories is a good way to do that, and we'd be happy to show you how to do that. Cost whack-a-mole, and we're all there, right? We've just fixed it, and that's the issue with elasticity, is that this month you fix it, and just the next day the cost comes back. And the reality is we sit with relentless business pressures, and those business pressures manifest themselves into typically technical teams prioritizing a production release or a new feature, a new capability over costs, right? How many of you have been in departments where there is a relentless drive to get something delivered within a certain space of time? You all know that optimization is something that typically takes time. And so reducing costs is a maturity part of a production release. And these issues manifest themselves in increased spend, typically in development environments. So these need to be checked. And that means that you can't just set up daily and exception alerting as a means to track things. You should have a cadence where you meet a collection of like minds, or it could just be an individual that logs into the Cost Explorer, whichever tool you're using, and to go and look at some basic spends. What we've found is in this routine, there are some good practices that allow you to build a rhythm to go and check specific things that will help ensure that you don't miss a spend overrun. And again, we've got a template for this. We'd be happy to share it. But as you know, something like Cost Explorer, you've got the ability to save certain types of reports. And so and again, we've got the documentation for it, but there are specific reports you can build. We've got them listed here. You must look at monthly trends in our experience. This is now in AWS, for some reason, they've marked it as legacy in Cost Explorer. We still find incredibly valuable. What the legacy monthly trends does, again, you view it under the menu under legacy. Monthly trends shows you the difference between monthly spend from last month to this month. And that is incredibly valuable. So I even look at that before I go to Cost Optimization Hub. So absolutely look at that. Then go and view your month-to-date spends on a daily and an hourly basis, and then grow into your broaders and obviously scan into specific issues. Look at your anomaly detection. When you build anomaly detection alerting, you're not just building that alerting, but you're actually building rules for AWS to go and track things. So it's useful to log into anomaly detection and actually go and scan it. Something that we do, and I advise you all to look at it, is use anomaly detection, not just for that daily exception alerts, but anomaly detection has a nice feature to go and do a weekly summary of anomalies. So it's an additional alert that you can get. And this is a case where we usually say only do exception alerting, but a weekly summary is useful. You could have it that is posted into a folder in your email, but it's quite nice to get a weekly summary of things that were in any way anomalous. That was a 20% difference in terms of normal spend, be it up or down. Okay. In terms of that routine, review coverage and utilizations of savings plans, and just go and look at your billing. Check your general billing. There's usually some mention of credits, outstanding payments, but that should be a routine. And if you get that routine down pat, it should take up to 30 minutes with a detailed scan. And then the process should be trace, go and track any cost anomalies, validate that they are an issue, assign someone to resolve them and follow them up. All too often we find we experience a cost anomaly, we speak to the technical team. The team say, yes, we acknowledge that's an issue, but in their minds, they're still dealing with production issues. And so they park it and leave it. Number 7, limit the blast radius. Now, this is something that is a little anomalous for us as well. Unfortunately, AWS does not offer a pay-as-you-go plan. That means you can't say, on this account, we set a limit of $200. If $200 is reached, then stop all spend, right? They don't have anything like that. So here's some recommendations that'll help. Number 1, when you deploy an environment, there are a whole bunch of regions that are deployed, and you want to limit that blast radius. So don't go and say, okay, we're only working in Cape Town, we're only working in Ireland, so therefore set alerting to any spend in any other environment. Don't do that. In services like Control Tower and using SCP, you can actually go and say, do not use these regions, or so only use these regions, Virginia, etc. Okay, that saves money. So don't monitor what you can block. That's the first recommendation. And going and monitoring many regions costs a lot of money. Yeah, don't do it. Quotas. Quotas sound great. Quotas allow you to go and say, to limit what you can run at every service. So you can limit that in an account, you can only launch 2 M5 larges, or your lambdas are limited to a certain concurrency, right? That's very useful. But there are thousands of these. And each time you enable a quota, you have to do a communication, you have to get approval, and you do it one by one. You're not going to achieve this. If you have 100 accounts, that's potentially 50,000 alerts you need to send out. So in our experience, that's not useful. So don't go and apply what sounds logical, which is set a quota of 0 for something that you don't need to use. Set the quotas on things that you do use. If you're running a Lambda, go and have a look at the quota spend for that and set it. Okay. So if you are running 5 things in an environment, set your quotas for those 5 things. Go and say, right, we're running 2 M5s, set the quota to 4 M5s, because typically the quota overrun happens on things you're running, not things you're not running. Yeah. And then lastly, permissions. Obviously, go and set your permissions to prevent, and boundary policies are a good way to do this, to stop people using resources that they shouldn't. In our experience, that's better than using quotas. And then lastly, always be cleaning. So engineers, as I've mentioned, are all running things all the time. They're experimenting, they're playing with stuff. Cost overruns will happen. Pressures on delivery often result in wastage. So be vigilant. Go and speak to the teams about setting some business rules around how to manage things. Go and set some automation to be able to go and shut things down. We have something called the light switch that shuts things down at night or shuts things down on the weekends, right? In development, you'll hear about our tool that we have, but we have some default settings where an organization can say as a rule, development is shut down on the weekends. Okay. So like I said, Obsidian have templates for this. What matters for us in FinOps is try and implement observability so you can see wastage. That wastage is a thing. When you speak to AWS, they don't like to use the term wastage because that's so negative. They like to refer to the word optimization. We like to call it like it is. There's waste out there. Let's go and kill the waste. Let's show wastage as a thing. So in our tooling, when we go and show costs, wastage is an item. It has a value. We also like to look at decommissioning and cleaning house as templates. So we have an enterprise tool which takes all of these basic things and we focus on really 3 things: keeping it simple and consolidation, having it self-service so that you can do this yourself. You don't need to implement technical stuff, and that all of this is observable, that you can track. I've done 10 of my 15 basic settings. My tag alerting is 80% done. I can actually see and account for my wastage, that I get cost alerts in place. I have a cloud inventory so I can track my assets. I have a kill switch so I can go and terminate environments or decommission environments that aren't running. And we have a foundation scanner to go and track what you're spending in the cloud. So we have an enterprise tool. If you're interested in this, this is different to other tools in that we're really just focused on the basics. And that's it from my side. I think, Jay, do you want to show a quick demo of that alerter? And then I'll just have a look at the cost at the chat.
While we're switching to Jason, it's also a good opportunity to perhaps just answer one or two of the questions that have come through, if you're comfortable to do that before we're out of time.
Yes, sure.
One of those was, how does FinOps address security and compliance concerns in the cloud, especially when dealing with financial data?
Yeah, so there's some disciplines that FinOps give you. So firstly, security and FinOps go hand in hand in many ways. Quite often you're managing security incidents. Security incidents have financial repercussions. Either when you talk about compliance through a fine, or they have a financial impact, right? A spend, like wastage. It could be ransomware, it could be resources being abused because someone's doing some Bitcoin mining. They work hand in hand because sometimes a security alert needs to be communicated to a team that is FinOps. Or FinOps may pick up a cost anomaly that is actually caused by security incidents. So they work hand in hand together. Sometimes security people need to work with FinOps, and FinOps people need to work security, but quite often events are related. Yeah. So it's very important that the FinOps team, for example, has some security visibility. Someone from security needs to have visibility of costs. Because as I said, sometimes a spend is an early warning for the security team that something's wrong. So I don't know if that answers it, but they work hand in hand, and I actually want to have security as part of the FinOps team.
Fantastic, Brian. Thank you. I think that does cover it. What strategies can organizations use to set realistic and meaningful cloud budgets? So I think I've spoken quite a bit about the sort of cost management along the way and through the journey, but perhaps just that process up front also.
So budgets are very difficult in the cloud. We actually, in many organizations, have a situation where I actually ask them what their budget is, and it's a lot of guesswork. There's a few things to think about in those budgets. The first thing is that it must be all-inclusive. We need to consider not just AWS spend, but the total cost of ownership. So we need to look at how many resources do you have allocated, what is the spend of those resources, and then we need to be realistic about spend increases in an environment. So whenever you implement any infrastructure or solution in the cloud, there should be some pre-planning. And AWS has great tools for this. They've got the cost calculator, and they've got a total cost of ownership tool. Please reach out to us if you need to use those. But you should do some budgeting. And there are good tools that AWS give and advisory tools to do that. So absolutely, it's difficult, but there are tools to help.
Fantastic, Ron. Thank you so much. Jason, I think over to you for the demo.
Okay. So it's a very quick demo. It's not much. I'm going to showcase how we are running our coastal later. I'm just going to show you some settings. I've got some settings in the DynamoDB. I'm just going to execute a command to trigger an event, and then I'll just see some messages popping up on these channels. So these are kind of literally some of the settings we have in one of our towers and the different accounts. And for each one of those, we kind of put in all our settings. I'm picking one of our big teams, the big data team, and I'm just setting that I would like to see a budget. I'm forcing it to trigger an event. Hopefully there's some activity happening right now. I want to see a budget of $4 in the last 24 hours. And so the budget is $5, and I would like to only see top 4 resources and only show me anything that is from $1, minimum of $1. And that's one of the teams I'm going to look at. And the other one is a DevOps team, same thing, budget. And then I just want to see top 5. And then we'll see what happens in the minimum of $1 as well. So all these kind of settings, you can do it in our interface, in our main system. I'm just jumping to make just for the demo purposes. So what I have now, all I'm doing here, can you see my screen now? All I'm just going to do now is I'm really just running one of the lambdas that triggers everything. The FinOps coastal letter. I've got my profile, and I just want to scan those 2 accounts that I just shown the settings for. Let's see the demo gods if they're on my side today. And then
we're seeing the attributes page, is that right?
Sorry?
We're seeing the attributes page, is that right?
No. So let me see. Sorry for that. I don't usually use Zoom, so probably didn't share the right screens. How do I share the whole screen?
Yeah, the same issue. It seemed like you could only share a specific thing.
Okay. So do you now see I'm in Visual Studio Code?
I can still see attributes.
Attributes. So share.
There we go. Let's see Visual Studio Code.
Cool. All right. So those settings, all I want to do now, I'm just going to run my trigger my Lambda, just to force it for now. And I just want to scan those two accounts, the settings that I've just shown you. And then I'll run that. So first thing I would showcase what then comes through is on the WhatsApp side. Then you can see there's my big data message. Now you can target them now. This is actually to a group. It has just come through with my $5. I'm showing four items of 21 resources. And then for the DevOps team, same thing. You kind of have, it's showing the top 5. And these are actual resources that are actually happening right now. This is actually live data. Our guys are busy working. I'm sure there's some guys running some EKS clusters and stuff like that. And I can actually see now what's going on in that account. But this can actually go to the respective DevOps team that is using these accounts. They know exactly that something's happening with their resources. I think that's all I can quickly share, or maybe I can showcase the Slack that would have come through as well. So this is a Slack example. It's exactly the same message. I've just opened the DevOps one. It will be exactly the same message. And then, so the teams, I quickly plugged in the teams. I didn't really style it. Let me see the teams one. Grant?
Yeah, we can see that.
Okay, I didn't really style it, so this is all templatized. I just styled the other ones that I had time for. But the module, you can just same message, you pump the message, you templatize it the way you want. I just didn't style the Teams one, but exactly the same message can come in if you want to use Teams as well. I think the final one's just the email, perhaps, if I can show the email. So with the emails, there's the different budgets that came through. And I think that's all I wanted to just demonstrate around this tool.
Thanks, Jay.
Jason, thank you so much. Grant, any closing comments from you before we wrap up?
No, thanks. Just from my side, thanks for everyone's time, and please reach out to us if you need help with any of these settings. FinOps@al.co.za. We'd be happy to help you. We've got a team of experts, and we just want to thank the team that helped organize and set this up together. Thank you, Siobhan and team. And yeah, we hope you all have learned something from these settings and are going and logging into your consoles and making the changes as we speak.
Grant, Jason, thank you so much again for sharing your wealth of experience and knowledge with us. I think it's quite clear from the foundational strategies that you really have shared today that it is possible to effectively manage your cloud spend and harness the full power of AWS without breaking the bank. But that really, cloud cost management is an ongoing process that requires consistent attention and optimization. So also thank you to the audience members who were able to join us live today. And for those of you who may have missed parts of the session or would like to revisit the content, a recording of this webinar will be made available on Tech Central, so please keep an eye out. Otherwise, we look forward to connecting with you again soon. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.